In this video, we are going to be talking about setting up a still life and starting your own still life drawing. So a still life is a work of art that mostly depicts objects as the subject matter. They're usually common objects such as like food or flowers, plants, drinking glasses, jewelry, vases, things like that. And they're set up in a composition. And when you're setting up your composition, it's important to think about a couple of different key factors to create a successful still life. For our still lifes, we are going to be using our forms that we've been practicing with so far. I've got spheres, cubes, cylinders, and then I've also got cones and some other forms as well. But when you're setting up your objects, two things that are really important to get a successful composition is to overlap your forms and not to leave big gaps between your forms. So if I were to set up all my forms just in a row, there's nothing really interesting about that. So play around with how you set up your still life. You can stack things on top of each other. Make sure to overlap some of your forms so that you can create depth and space. And don't leave big gaps between your forms as well. And then when it comes to shading your forms, make sure that you use a large range of values. You want all of the values from 1 to 7 to make sure that your forms don't blend into each other, and make sure, since they are overlapping, that you have changes in value when you have changes in your forms. So for example, in this photo right here, or in this drawing right here, the sphere is in front, but in no way does it blend in with the cube. The cube is much darker on the side, on the plane that is overlapping with the sphere in front of it. So go ahead, take a moment, take out your objects and try to set them up. Try a few different compositions so that you can choose which one you think looks the best. Keep those things in mind that we talked about, and in the next clip I am going to be showing you how I start my own still life. Okay, so I've got my still life set up in front of me. I'll just kind of move my camera a little bit to show you. So I've got a cylinder, a cone, and a triangular prism. Just got those set up right in front of me. I've got my light source in the top right, and I'm just going to start drawing and mapping out where everything is on my paper. So I'm looking at my cylinder first, and I'm going to draw that. This one, since it's in the front, it's going to come down lower than the rest of my forms because it's in the foreground. Remember, space. It's the furthest, it's the closest to us. Okay, that looks about right. Then I'm going to take a look at my cone. I know this is not the best way to do this, but I just want to show you. The bottom of my cone hits right about there on my cylinder. Okay, so look at where your forms are in relationship to each other. Make sure that they're not just all in a line, because we created that overlapping when you put together your still life. So I'm going to make sure that the bottom of my cone is right about there. But before I do that, I'm going to draw my triangular prism, just because that's in front of my cone. And once I get that in, that'll be easier for me to draw the cone behind it. Okay. Try to stop moving, yeah. So to draw my triangular prism, I see a line that comes to about this height on my cylinder. So I see a line that comes down, and actually the corner of my triangular prism comes further down than, or comes further forward than my cylinder. And then I see two lines that go back this way. And then I've got a triangular shape here, and a triangular shape here. So I'm just making sure I'm observing closely. I'm looking to see the relationship between my shapes, taking my time to see if this comes down forward. I see more of this front triangle than I do this side, so this is wider to me from where I'm looking at it. And then I can go in and do my cone. So the side of my cone, the edge of my cone, comes up right about here, or maybe it's a little bit higher. I'll go right there. And it comes way up here. It's got a flat top, so we'll make the top flat. And it comes back and hits about right in the middle of my cylinder right here. Just gotta plug my computer in quick. Okay. So it hits right about in the middle of my cylinder. On the top of it. Then I can finish this line across. And that looks pretty good. There is the start of my still life. Then to make it look like it's all on the ground, we have to put in a horizon line. That's where the sky meets the ground. So I'm just going to draw mine in right about here. And we won't do much with that for the sake of this exercise, but we just want to put that line in. Then I can go about value mapping my still life. So I'm just going to take a look here. It looks like this side, if my light's coming from this direction, this side of my triangular prism would be like a 1. We could say this side is like a 3. This is going to be very similar to shading the cube. So make sure we've got flat planes here. So this will all be 1, this will be 3. Make sure you can see the difference. My cylinder, we already practiced. So I'm going to put in my highlight. So that will be like a 1. Then we'll go 4 to 6, going that direction. We've got our reflected light. I could call this like a 3 and this a 3. Then my cone is also going to be very similar to my cylinder because it's a curved shape. So we'll start like that. This will be my highlight, my midtones, my core shadow going this way, reflected light. I forgot my reflected light over here. And then do not forget about your cast shadows. So we'll have 1, these will kind of overlap each other. This will all be shaded right in here. Make sure this shadow is darker than the bottom of your cone so you can see the difference. And then this shadow will be similar to, well, let's see. Looks like it comes to a point. So if I'm looking at it like this, maybe start it out here. Oops, sorry. And then bring it together into a triangular shape. I know that looks really messy. I can clean up my lines. But that is kind of our skeleton, our plan for our still life. Then I would just go about shading, just like we practiced in the previous videos.